welcome to Yellow Cardinal Tarot with me. My name is Carol, and this is going to be a general reading for you. And if it's come into your feed, I trust that it's meant for you at the time. And so today's reading, we're going to be doing the blind spot. And I couldn't think of a better oracle deck to begin with than Teal Swan's blind spot oracle cards. Now, these cards are really different. It's actually one of the first oracle deck that I bought, and kind of mesmerized by the sigils that are on each card. And in yours in particular, I really contemplated, I looked at it, I wanted to pick up an image that came through on your card. And I see there's kind of a mask. And it's the first thing I saw on your card was a mask. You might see something different. But the sigil that is represented for you for your reading today, I want you to know that Teal Swan says that her sigils are not symbols. They actually have magical powers that were given to her in a download. And so what these sigils do is they're going to help us bring awareness to the blind spot here. And so it's not a theme or it's not a subject, but it's actually going to help us pull out the blind spot. And so we're going to look at what this sigil means for you, what it is actually, and then we're going to pull out some tarot cards after. So your card is called Overlay. And I thought of that. It was like, which was interesting that I thought this was a mask, because an overlay, because if I think of when I create some thumbnails on, let's say, Canva that I use, I always look for overlays, and overlays are like something that covers it. It's a screen, something that's covering something else. So Teal says that if you've drawn the sigil, you are currently stuck in an overlay. So you are being called to step out of it so as to base your thoughts, your words, and your actions on reality instead. So it's like there's something covering up what's real here. Now, I'm going to pick, I had to read through what she wrote because she had about 3 or 4 pages on this. So I'll just pick a little bit out of, try to explain to you what she means by overlay. Most of us have experienced this overlay when we were children. We played pretend. So in circumstances in which we could not cope with the reality of our childhood, the coping mechanism of pretend became a way to literally get away from and escape our reality. When this is the case, we start to feel the overlay is more real than the actual reality that we don't want to admit to. So, overlays make it so that we commit to something that isn't real, especially in relationships. And eventually, when that overlay begins to corrode, we end up in a reality that is the opposite of what we choose. Nowhere are overlays more present than in relationships. The reality of our relationship life is often very painful. We are desperate to have the vision we see in our heads of what we want. Maybe it's that picture of the perfect family, which would make us feel belonging and closeness and connection. Our commitment is to that picture of what we want. There's nothing wrong with creating that as long as we are creating it in reality. The danger is that this picture can become an overlay. It can be what prevents us from seeing reality. And so if you've drawn the sigil, you're in an overlay. Unless you see the overlay for what it is and see the reality underneath it, you will be unable to make the choices and changes that will manifest what you so desperately want in reality. Now you are just pretending they are happening in reality, when really they are a fantasy you are living in, so that you do not have to face reality. So this is all about living in a fantasy, something, like a kid, would pretend to get out of their situation when they're younger. So all about a fantasy that you're living in right now, something that, and this is a blind spot, right? So be very careful, because when we're talking about a blind spot, we're really talking about your ego has created this in your head. And because your ego can sit here and tell you that none of this is true, and that, you know, you're not creating this. And that's what's really important here, is that if you're hearing that message in your head already, it's because your ego doesn't want you to see what's underneath. And a lot of times it is pain when it has to do with a relationship or your current situation. Maybe it's something that's triggering healing from when you were younger. That's something that you need to look at, and you've covered it up. Something that you just not want to look at right now. So this card, the sigil, is going to help us pull out what area of your life that you have this overlay in. And so I'm going to pull some tarot cards right now, and I'm going to look at what the situation is. Like what situation you're in, if there's an issue that you have, a decision. What are you facing right now that's in relationship to this overlay? You know, what's going on here. So we're going to get a little bit of information there. And then I'm going to look at what's coming up from your shadow for healing. So there is something that, whatever's happening with you with this overlay, you have something coming up from your shadow that is wanting you to look at to heal. And our shadow is always something we've repressed and put away. Something about ourselves, something we were told when we were younger. It could be when you were a child. It could be when you were an adolescent. But it's right now coming up for healing. And so it's driving whatever this situation is that you're kind of looking at it, and you're, you know, putting that overlay on it because you don't want to look at it because it's painful. That's why you pushed it down when you were younger. And then I'm going to ask some guidance from the tarot, and, you know, find out, you know, how can you begin to heal this. This is a healing journey. It's a process. And so there won't be a magic pill at the end, but I'm definitely going to, you know, help you with, okay, this needs the tarot. Well, first of all, tell me, you know, okay, you're going to focus on this issue right here. Maybe it's an emotion you have to focus on. And then I'll offer you some videos that I've done on my other channel called Carol Cares. And those are other videos that will specifically be related to the tarot's guidance. So let's begin by asking the tarot right now, what situation, issue, decision are you facing right now in relationship to this sigil that's come up for you? So one card for Aquarius, and I'm going to be using the Curious Travel deck right now for the three main cards that I'm pulling out, and then I'm going to clarify with the Ehrenberg Tarot. So this is the Curious Travels that I'm using right now. So you have the Page of Pentacles coming up first. Just no surprise to me. Pages in my deck are always an inner child that needs healing. So what's coming up from your shadow that needs healing? The sideways position, you have the Five of Pentacles. Interesting that it has a picture of a child on there. And it's coming from your shadow. So what guidance does the tarot have right now for you? What guidance does the tarot have for you, Aquarius? Whoa, you have two cards that wanted to come out, one after the other. So you have the Ten of Pentacles, and then you have the Nine of Pentacles. Ten of Pentacles and the Nine of Pentacles. Okay. Now what I want to do is get out the Ehrenberg. And can you give me a couple clarifiers for Page of Pentacles right here? It's like it was left in my hand and I'm going to take it out. It's the Ten of Wands. It's like, that's the one you want, last card. But it was like, what am I going to do with this card? One more card for you to clarify this Page of Pentacles. One more card. There we go. The Nine of Wands in reverse. So it's interesting, you have 10 and the 9 wands right beside each other, and over here you have the 10 and 9. 10 and 9, right? We're going from this completion, and then we're moving back a bit. Like, that's interesting that you've got it both in your, these two rows right here. Okay, Five of Pentacles. It's almost like we're falling back, right? We're moving. You have the Judgment card. It comes out first and it's upright. I'm going to put these up. And here's the Judgment. And one more card here after the Judgment. The Seven of Swords. I love this depiction of the Seven of Swords. It has the mask on it. And we did talk about, I did already talk about how the sigil looked like it had a mask on it. So, you know, we're having that, again, the overlay kind of. It's not a theme, but it's, we're going to be looking at, we're going to be pulling out what it is, what the overlay is, what's the situation here where you've created this. I need one more card here for the 10 and the 9 of Pentacles. So you have the King of Swords. So let's begin. I want to look at what situation, issue, decision you're dealing with right now that's creating this overlay, where you have this overlay. Okay, so you start off with the Page of Pentacles. Page of Pentacles, pages in my deck, like I said, are our inner children. We can have more than one inner child. I've been on my own healing journey for about 8.5 years intensively, and I know that I have more than one inner child that holds our memories, our trauma, these big emotions. So I'm feeling like there's some big emotions coming up with you. And it's the Pentacle here, and the Pentacle talks about the body. It's the earth element. It's being grounded in your body. Believe it or not, when we were younger, 4, 5, 6 years old, we were very grounded in our body. And I think what's happening here is there's a child here when you were younger that is holding these big emotions that you had when you were younger, and they're coming up right now for you to feel for them. Because that's how we heal our inner children. It's up to us now to feel these big emotions that they are holding for us, that they couldn't feel when they were younger. And so now when we're older, they'll come up. It's like they're bubbling up for us, right? So there's something here. There's big emotions that are coming up for you right now, and you are feeling it. Because it's like, you know, this inner child is saying, listen to me, Aquarius. I have to heal. There's something I need to tell you. There's something you need to know. I have big emotions around this, and it's pulling at your pant leg. We're here to listen to our inner children. They can speak to us. I journal to my inner children all the time. They're a part of us, and they hold a lot of our information for us. And so, you know, maybe you're feeling these emotions coming up, and the last thing you want to do is feel them, you know. And then the 10 of Wands comes next, and the 9 right behind it in reverse. And look at this boulder in an upright position, right? This individual that's been carrying this boulder, it's almost like they're trying to hold up their head. And so, you know, I just picture that as... and it's in reverse because I think it's like it's time for you to look at this. Like, what sort of boulder have you been trying to push up this hill for so long, right? And maybe it's like you've been pushing and pushing, and I have this image of you pushing and pushing and then falling back. And that's where that 10 and then the 9 of Wands comes in, right? You're pushing, you go up, maybe you push up 2 steps and then you fall back, and you just keep on doing this. And there's this, it's difficult when that's how we live our life, right? 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, and you keep doing this. Picture you going back and forth here, and it's like I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. And then you have this 9 of Wands that comes in right behind it. And in an upright position, there's this, it's you, like it's this picture of you. Look at them, they've been through a battle. They're tired, right? And they can only barely see. They can only see through, like they've got the bandage on their head, and they're just peeking out from this bandage. And it's like, you know, maybe you've tried to create boundaries in this relationship. Maybe it's a particular relationship I'm referring to here. You've tried to put up boundaries, you've set them, that's not working. You've been through a real battle with a particular relationship maybe that you're in. There's something here that's coming up for you where you're in this relationship and it's like, I have reached the end of my rope. I have tried, I've done everything with this relationship. And you know, the fact that your 10 and your 9 are in reverse, it's like you are pretty much done. And I mean, that's what Teal was saying in the reading that I gave you at the beginning, and how, you know, we can create this reality for ourselves for so long around certain relationships, right? And I did it myself, where, you know, you can be in a marriage forever and you create this image of what you think you've created. You believe it's because something you really wanted, and you can create it into what, you know, you thought it is. But then when it starts corroding, right, when that boulder starts coming down where you've been pushing so long and it's like, okay, you can't hold it up anymore, you start to realize that this relationship is not what you thought it was all these years. Whether it's an intimate partner, whether it's a marriage you're in, whether it's a friendship, whether it's, you know, some sort of work situation, colleague, whatever it is, you're at the point right now where you're like, I'm having difficulty staying in my body. This kind of tells me, you know, with this pentacle, this inner child card coming up here, you're having difficulty staying in your body because there's these big emotions coming up now that you're starting to awaken to this relationship and what it really is, right? You're awakening to your reality. You're becoming more aware of what's going on. And so what's coming up from your shadow that needs healing? What's happening? Because this shadow, whatever it is, it's pushing, it's driving something for you to heal. And this relationship that you're in is causing you, it's triggering this healing that's coming up for you. And so you have the 5 of Pentacles that's coming in a sideways position here. And look at this child. He's broken one of his pentacles and he's very upset at himself. It was an accident, pure accident, and he's very upset. And so I think, you know, these hands right here, I almost think that he was shamed because he did this. You know, a lot of times when kids break something, there's something about when they break something that it just brings up so much shame inside of them, like they hate themselves, like, why did I do this? And you're not even recognizing that you have these helping hands right here. And, you know, maybe these hands when you were younger were the ones that, you know, gave you the shame. Because shame is not something we're born with. Shame is something that we are given. And so the first thing I see here, because this is in your shadow, is that there's a lot of shame here around something that you did when you were younger, just feeling so unworthy about something. And it could be a memory here coming up. I'm going to see if there's more information, but we're dealing here with a lot of shame. And you're being really hard on yourself. I'm hearing that. So in this particular situation is you're starting to be really hard on yourself. And it's almost like, why didn't I see this before? Why did I spend all these years in this relationship or with this person? Why did I give all my time to this individual or these individuals? Whatever it is, general reading. And now, like, there's this shame coming up where you're really beating yourself up. But it's something when you were younger that's coming up for healing, when you were shamed. You were shamed for, you know, here's this judgment card where somebody blamed you for something when you were younger. Somebody said this was your fault. And the judgment card is sitting here in the middle of your shadow. It's like you couldn't speak your truth. You weren't allowed to say, well, this wasn't my fault. It's not my fault that I broke this pentacle. I didn't mean to do it. It wasn't my fault. Whatever the situation was when you were younger, you were blamed for something. And you weren't giving, like, there was no justice in the situation, right? Where you were blamed for it and you couldn't use your voice. You couldn't speak up for yourself. And then you learned. Seven of Swords comes here. Seven of Swords speaks about this individual. That's swords are about our mental energy, things that we were told when we were younger. Like, what were you told when you were younger? This is your fault. You're a sucky baby. You caused this to happen. And so you pick up that, you learn at a young age to pick up this mask and put it on. Because the real you was shamed for being who you are. And a lot of times we know what sort of things we were told when we were younger because we hear them, we tell them, what are you telling yourself right now? This is your fault. You shouldn't have done this. You were warned about going into this relationship. Let's say, for example, it was like, somebody warned me about marrying this person and I didn't listen, and now this is all my fault. I should have listened. That whole should have, right? Well, you shit on yourself, and that's just the shame. So what sort of messages are you telling yourself right now about the situation that you're in? Because those are the messages that somebody would have told you when you were younger for something that you did and it wasn't your fault. And so you just see how this is coming up now. This situation when you were younger needs healing. There's a younger part of you that needs healing. Because you learned when you were younger not to stay in that body. Because you would have had to feel that shame. Shame is a big, huge emotion for any child to feel. And so what happens when they feel that, they can't feel that when they're younger. And so that's when our parts, these inner children of ours, will take it on, will hold it for us until we're older. And, you know, this, whatever the situation is right now, it's coming up for you so you can heal it. So you can heal that younger part of you that was shamed when they were younger. And so what guidance does the tarot have for you around this situation? Because, you know, underneath all of this is the reality of the situation. It's the reality of your situation now, which you need to deal with. But it's also the reality of, you know, situation when you were younger. Let's get to the truth of this, right? And so the tarot says, well, here's the Ten of Pentacles here for you. Ten of Pentacles, first of all, these elephants there's a few generations here. You can say 3 different generations, right, of elephants. And this card speaks about generations of things that are handed down. And in particular, because this is a healing channel, I look at this card as something that talks about generational trauma. And so what was it that was handed down, right? In this case, it's the shame. You know, the people that shame us were shamed from other people. And it's just, you know, we end up carrying this generation. It comes through for us. And I think there's a need for you right now to look at that. It's like, okay, what sort of shame are you carrying that's been handed down to you from your parents, your caretakers, your grandparents, and your ancestors, right? This heavy shame. This is this rock, this boulder right here, right? That you've carried all your life. Maybe you've carried it from your ancestors, from like your own parents. What is that? But it's now time for you to clear that, right? To heal that. And then here's the Nine of Pentacles again. So that comes up here. Well, that was the Wands actually that we were referring to. But now you have the Nine of Pentacles where we go from the 10 to the 9. The Nine of Pentacles speaks about, it's just like this individual that, oftentimes it's seen as an abundance card, right? It's just like this individual that's very, you can see the sun there coming out. And it's wanting to shine light on, you know, this is the trauma here that you're being asked to clear. And then it wants you to say, like, what matters to you right now? What do you want in your life right now? Like, what's the most important thing that matters to you right now? And it wants you to kind of bring that into focus now. Now that you've become aware of what the situation is in your life, well, what's this new focus? What matters to you right now? And be very careful, because the next card that comes out is the King of Swords, and that's where we end right now. And the King is our masculine side. We all have a masculine and a feminine side. It has nothing to do with our gender, but the King will come out. It's our ego. It's our ego self, and it's carrying this sword of a single sword. I always call is the sword of authenticity, the sword of who you really are. This ego self wants nothing to do with authenticity. It's so petrified for you to get in touch with this emotion of shame. It's petrified of emotions. The ego self is a very, very scared part. It doesn't want you to go towards your shame. And it does not want you to go towards your authenticity. It wants you to remain in this this cloud, right? It wants you to remain with this overlay on. It doesn't want you to lift up your mask. It doesn't want you to find out, who you really are underneath all of this. And so be very careful, because this ego self will come out and say, this is all bullshit. Don't go there. Don't go towards your shame. But I think there's a real need for you to get in touch with the shame that's been handed down to you, in your situation. And so I'm going to leave you with a playlist on shame, and there's some good videos on there about what it is and how we can heal our shame. The first big thing I want to tell you about shame is that you got to bring it out in the open. And sometimes you got to tell somebody. You got to tell somebody that, in particular, the emotion of shame. You have to tell somebody, like, this is how I'm feeling. I feel shitty. Shame's all about feeling shitty. And, get it out in the open. Because shame is hidden. We talked about the mask, right? It's a real hidden. We don't want to admit to people that we feel shame, that we don't like ourselves, that we feel unworthy, right? We all have that. We're all human. So I want you to have compassion for yourself, Aquarius, for what you're working through, and stay safe. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.